Morning, it's Monty. The sun's come out. I should really go out and about. Morning, it's Monty here from Sportive Cyclist, the mammal channel. And in this video, I'm going to review the Bryton Rider 450 bike computer. Now, most good reviews tend to start off with an unboxing. Because I've actually been using the device in question, I unboxed this some months ago. So Bryton were very kind enough to send me the device to review because they'd seen that I had a number of reviews of other bike computers on my blog, and they wanted to see, I don't know why, what I thought. I've probably been using it for the best part of 3 or 4 months. Now, there is a blog post that accompanies this video. No doubt the video will be somewhat shambolic, so I would recommend that if you want to know the detail, take a look at the blog post, and the link to that is in the description below. So, what do we get in the box? It comes in a box about yay big with some instructions. The one I got is the let me see. Bear with me. Yeah, so I got sent the 450T bundle, which comes with the heart rate strap. So you can see the front, the heart rate monitory bit here, the strap itself. You get the cadence sensor and speed sensor here. You get a little lanyard which you can affix to the back, which you can use to avoid it falling off in the event of a spill. You get your mount, which I mentioned I've already fixed to the bike, which you can't see, and the whole range of these rubber bands, good quality ones, loads of them. USB charging cable. If you were to buy the 450E, yeah, it's the device only option. Box thingammy, rubbery thing. This is the device in question here. You can see that. There's a clue to who makes it on the top and on the side and on the front. So you've got 2 buttons at the bottom, 2 on the side here, 2 on the side there. It's not touch screen. It is a grayscale display. You'd think I would have turned it on before starting. So I'll switch it on, and one of the attractions about actually the Bryton versus other bike computers I've used is that the speed at which it boots up. It's already there, whereas both the Wahoo and the Garmin's equivalents, they do tend to take a few seconds to boot up. The screen itself you can probably not see because this camera will autofocus. So the screen itself, it's okay compared to the ELEMNT Bolt. It's certainly not as good. The contrast isn't as good. It's not as bright. It looks very much like a bike GPS device. It's got the on the back you can see here there's a rubberized cover that covers the standard USB charging port, and also on the back you've got your mount here. In terms of build quality, as I bring in the other two, things like the buttons on the bolt and indeed those on the side of the edge, they're under a rubberized covering. They do feel generally slightly better quality devices. The Bryton does feel a little bit plasticky. When you've got them in your hand, it feels as if the Bryton is that bit lighter. It just feels like the build quality is slightly better on the Edge 520 and the Bolt. But in fact, when I weighed them, it turns out that the Bryton is actually slightly heavier than each of these two devices. If I hold them up here, you can see that the Rider is that little bit bigger than the Bolt. Similarly, the Edge, it's slightly less deep. It's about the same as the Bolt. Now, the attraction of the Bryton over both of the Edge and the Bolt is the battery life. The Bryton Rider outlasts the other two considerably, so goes for much longer between charges. Bryton state that it can be charged for up to 32 hours, whereas the 520 is up to 15 hours, and the Bolt, again, is up to 15 hours. The Edge 530, which is the newer version, that goes up to 20 hours. It does mean that it can go quite a few rides without having to put this on charge. All 3 of these devices connect to your phone. All of them have an app, so Garmin have their Connect app, Wahoo has its, what does it call it? The ELEMNT app. Bryton, they've got the Bryton Active app. Now, I'm not a professional technology reviewer, you might have noticed that. I think it's very hard to compare every single aspect of all 3 of these devices. I'll probably focus on the key things that I need from a bike computer. So in this case, that would be that it can communicate with an adequate number of sensors and has enough screens to show the data on here, that it can accurately record the rides that I undertake, that once I've finished doing the ride I can download the data either to an app or to my computer, and then finally it can be used for the creation, uploading and then following of routes when I'm riding in places that I don't know particularly well. If we focus on those 4 elements as we go through this video. In terms of sensor compatibility, the Bryton 450 Rider, the Bryton Rider 450 ticks all of the boxes. It supports both ANT Plus and BLE. I was able to connect with absolutely no fuss whatsoever to the speed and cadence sensor on my bike, to my heart rate strap, which is made by Wahoo. Oh, I think I've used it with my power meter, which is a stages left only. It'll also connect to electronic gearing systems, so DI2 in the case of Shimano, and I think it connects both to the Campagnola and SRAM versions as well. So in terms of data screens, i.e. the screens that you can show on the device itself whilst you're riding, it has capacity for 5 basic ones, and then you can add 2 pages of lap data. You cycle through them by pressing the orange button on the bottom. You can use the app, which I'll come on to decide which data fields are shown. One of the screens is the map screen here, which is your standard sort of breadcrumb style map. When you're actually riding on a ride, it will also show you an elevation page as well. On the main data pages, you can show up to 10 data fields, and they're arranged in a grid. As you reduce the number of data fields that you pick or that you select on the app itself, each of those data fields increases in size. How do you amend what's on each data page? You use the Bryton app. So you go into the app, you can use the grid setting option, go to page 1, and if you can see that there, it shows a visual depiction of the device. You can click on each data field here and sort of scroll through the different options that are available. I'm selecting the top left data field here. It currently says speed. I'm going to move it to distance. Let's see how long it takes to update. It's updated on here, and instantly you can see, you cannot see, but I am telling you that it's already moved to distance. It's actually quite an easy to use app and quite effective in that respect. In terms of accurately recording rides, it uses up to 5 different satellite networks. Who knew there were 5? So in addition to your GPS, which is your American one, you've got Galileo, which is the European satellite network, GLONASS, which is the Russian one, which sounds pleasingly James Bond-like, and then 2 more which I'd absolutely never heard of. So China has one called BDS, and Japan has one called QZSS. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to find a satellite network. The next item I think I said on my list was the ease with which you upload or download ride data once you've recorded it. It's actually a bit clunky, to be honest. Whereas with the Wahoo, I walk into my house and it instantaneously connects with my Wi-Fi, and before you know it, Strava is telling me that a new ride is uploaded. Didn't find it as easy to get the Bryton Rider 450 to do the same thing. I think what it's actually doing is communicating with the phone via bog standard Bluetooth and uploading the ride into the Bryton app, and from there syncing it with the other apps. And to be honest, if it's a long ride, it can take absolutely ages. This is connected to my house Wi-Fi, and there is a way of forcing it to sync with Wi-Fi, which you can do. It doesn't seem to be automated. It requires a few button presses, just slightly less efficient and I guess technologically pleasing than the Wahoo. The next item on my list was route planning. I don't tend to use either the Wahoo app or the Garmin one. I think you can use the Garmin Connect one to create routes. My go-to route mapping software of choice is Ride with GPS. I'm a bit of a Luddite. I tend to use the actual computer to make that route. I just find it easier to be able to see it on a big screen. Once it's saved down in Ride with GPS, I have my Ride with GPS account set to sync certainly with the the Wahoo, and I think also with my Strava, which then means it sort of syncs with all the others. The Bryton app does sync with Ride with GPS, or you can use the app itself in order to create a route. Now initially I thought it was somewhat rubbish compared to other apps, and as I say, I generally find it a bit harder to plan routes on the phone because you sort of feel like you're poking around with your finger and it's not really going anywhere. Because it has so few features, actually it's not the worst app in the world for creating routes with. It's just a case of putting your finger to mark waypoints along the route that you wish to take, and then once you're done, saving it, and then you can sync it into the device itself. So once you've got a route on the Rider 450, it's pretty straightforward to follow. You simply go to the map page and follow the trail of breadcrumbs around the map. Provided the file itself that's been uploaded has the data within it in terms of turn instructions and road names, it will display those in much the same way as both the Bolt and the Edge do. The biggest downside of the Rider 450 and the Bryton sort of way of doing things is just in terms of usability. Actually, just since this has popped up, I should probably tell you this. All three of these devices connect with a mobile phone and can show you text messages and can notify you that you've got a phone call coming through. Only one of them is capable of showing WhatsApp messages, and that's the Rider 450, and the beep that you just heard is my wife WhatsApping me. Going back to usability, to be honest, it's quite hard to use. Sometimes it's not intuitive as to which buttons you need to be pressing to do what, compared in particular to the Wahoo ecosystem, where all of the buttons, all of the menu options that appear on the screen, it's very intuitive to use. I would say that the Rider 450 is not particularly intuitive to use. There's been many times where I've been hitting a button thinking it should do something, it's not been doing anything, and it turns out I've simply been pressing the wrong button. But nonetheless it will bleep even though nothing is actually happening. Sometimes there can be a delay between you pressing a button and it moving onto the screen in question. So I'm on the map screen now, and this is a case in point. It's not immediately obvious to me how I zoom in or out, but I think it's one of these side buttons. It is. I've pressed it to zoom out and it takes a little while to do it. So finally, let's come on to price. The Rider 450 is significantly cheaper than both of these devices. It does probably 90% of what these two devices can do and does 100% of what I need from a bike computer. To summarise, what are the pros? Well, the price, it's certainly a better value bike computer than the other two, certainly lower cost. Value, I guess, we'll leave up to you. The battery life for this, the Rider 450, is significantly longer than both the Garmin and Wahoo alternatives. It's got an excellent number of data fields and the flexibility for you to use the app to select which ones you want to display on each page. I found it absolutely hassle-free in terms of connecting it to sensors on my bike and the heart rate strap. In terms of cons, not super intuitive at times. The creation and uploading of routes to the device is somewhat quirky. It takes a little bit of time and experimentation to get it right. And then finally, I guess as the offset to the lower price, it feels a little bit less premium than these two competitor devices. So hopefully you found this review of the Bryton Rider 450 useful. If you need more information, in fact if you would like it in a more coherent form, I recommend that you go and read it on my blog. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Now, which bike computer do you own? Is it a Bryton, a Garmin, a Wahoo? Let me know in the comment section below and what you like about it and what you don't like. If you've liked this video, please do click the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe and also the notifications button so you get told when I release a new one. I've been Monty, this is Sportive Cyclist, the mammal channel, and I'll see you in the next video.